in the United
Mm-hmm.
States. Do you ever have patients in hospice that want that assisted suicide, that like beg you for it? And have you ever had any cases of people who, or employees who have done that and have been like, they were in pain, we're trying to help, and that's what we ended up doing?
The assisted suicide, or we call it here in California, the End of Life Option Act, it is allowed in the state. It is heavily regulated. It is not something where you can get a diagnosis one day, make a decision that this is what you want to do the next day, and on day 3 you're set to take your medication and go wherever you're going to go. It takes, once you decide that that's something that you want, and there's only certain diagnoses, certain illnesses that you can use to qualify you to be a participant in the End of Life Option Act. You have to be certified by a doctor, and then you have to be certified by a psychiatrist, which they are doctors also, but you have to have like your internal medicine doctor and then a psychiatrist. And then 3 weeks after those assessments are done, you have to be reassessed by another physician. So you have to go through all these hoops, so to speak, to even qualify. Once all of that happens, then you have to coordinate a date and the medication and that kind of thing. And there are certain qualifications. The patient has to be able to take the medication themselves. So, and we have had several patients that have, used their right to this act that I've worked with. And sometimes I've had it where they were so sick that they died on their own prior to being able to end their own life, because the process at this point in time is still pretty cumbersome. But once everything is done, as a nurse, as a hospice nurse, we can be present at the location where they are doing this, whether it's in their own home. Several people that I know have chosen to do it at a hotel, because they don't want, their family doesn't want them to die at home, or they don't want to die at the home, or for whatever reason, where you can be like in the home, but you have to be in a different room. You can't be in the room with them when they're taking the medication, and they have to be able to take the medication on their own. But we can still stay at the residence to be supportive to the family and be with the patient after they've taken their medication. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely does. Assisted suicide is a very heavy topic, obviously, and it was big back when the guy in Switzerland did it, the older man. One thing that we wondered, maybe to help lighten up the mood a little bit more, is working in hospice and having employees in hospice. What are some things you can recommend to people who are dealing with heavy, not industries, but careers like this? Mm-hmm. What are some things you can recommend to help stay positive, keep going, have a good mindset about things? What are some things you can recommend?
You have to take care of yourself first, however it may be. You have to allow yourself to have recuperation and regeneration time. Whether it's, reading a book or walking your dogs or getting manicures or whatever it may be, to allow that time for yourself. And quite often that is time that is by yourself. So I have about a 45-minute drive home. And, so one of my things, I'm an 80s child. So, the 80s tunes go on, and I have my own personal rock concert in my car every day on the way home. So, that's very regenerative for me. So you need to take time off, you need to take breaks, and you need to not take everything so seriously in life. You know, the death and dying process is going to happen for all of us at some point in time. So, you know, you need to be able to laugh at things that are funny. You know, sometimes the color of your humor might be a little bit off, and that's okay. So, and it's, you also have to know that it's okay to cry. Um, there's always going to be a patient that hits you hard. And it could be, you know, quite oftentimes it's a patient that reminds you of somebody that was in your family that was a loved one that passed away. Quite often it could be a pediatric patient because it's just really difficult to have those cases. But it's okay to cry. It's okay to let the family see you cry. As long as they're not having to console you, then it's okay. We recommend, you know, if you've developed a really close relationship with the family, to go to the funeral, or, well, pre-COVID, you could go to the funeral or go to whatever kind of gathering they were having. We also, where I work, we have an annual memorial service to give all the employees an opportunity to say goodbye to all of our patients that we've had for the last year. So certain things like that are really restorative and recuperative for us.
And so that's good, definitely. It's good to keep a healthy mindset about things. And obviously this isn't a episode about, you know, mental health or things like that. That's a separate topic entirely, for a separate episode. But it's definitely good, you know, listen to 80s music in your car, or take the dogs out for a walk, like you said, and develop close connections, you know, and accept what you have to deal with.
Yeah.
You know, I think refusing to accept the reality of the situation a lot of times can make things worse.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. But pulling back to a little bit more, I know we talked about a few years ago the man who had assisted suicide. And there's another situation. This was a lot smaller. It wasn't as well known. But it's one of the articles that helped inspire this episode. And it was the situation where about 6 or 7 years ago, this man was on hospice for about 4 months. I think it was just over 4 months. And then they went in and they basically told him they're going to leave. He was going to have to leave, and they'd have to find other arrangements for him because he was, I think, too stable. That's the word. I think there was a typo in the article because I'm referencing the article. But it says a week after he was pulled off hospice, he passed away. Has that ever kind of situation happened in your field?
So I'm sure it has. When somebody comes on to hospice service, like I said, we have a physician that has to certify them with a prognosis of 6 months or less. That certification is good for 90 days. At the end of 90 days, the physician has to reevaluate that patient and certify them for another 90 days. And at that point, we have to do the same process, but every 60 days. So I would say to have somebody come on to service and after 4 weeks or a month or that kind of thing, for them to say he's too stable to come off, that is definitely out of the norm. But we do have to be able to justify to the federal agencies that fund us that the patients are appropriate for the care that we're providing. So we do have times where patients will graduate from hospice care because they've had what we call an extended prognosis, meaning they're going to live a lot longer, or they've decided to seek curative treatment, that kind of thing. So it does happen, and it does happen where they can have a change of condition right after they get decertified, and then pass quickly. And so we are constantly juggling that cloudy crystal ball, trying to figure out, where this patient is on their travel, and when is it right to keep them on service, when is it right to have them go off. Quite often we have them that will go off service, and a week, 2 weeks, a month later, they're coming back on service. And sometimes I've had it happen where we were all set to what we call decertify somebody, and like the day that we're going to do it, they have a change of condition, and so we don't go through with it, and they pass quickly. So it is possible that it could happen. But if I would recommend to somebody in that situation, if one hospice agency were to decertify you, is I would seek out another hospice agency and see if they would be willing to certify you and start services, because quite often that happens as well.
Well, only one more question.
Okay.
And ending on a little bit of a high note here. Do you have any, if you had to pick one good story or one good memory from working in hospice that you'd like to share, what would you pick?
Oh, wow. This actually goes back quite a long time ago to when I was in nursing school. I was able to spend some time at the VA in Palo Alto. They have what we call an inpatient hospice unit, where people are in the hospital getting their hospice services because their needs are so great. They're having, really out of control pain, or out of control shortness of breath, or whatnot. And we had a patient that was having difficulties passing, was kind of lingering and hanging on and just not really ready to go. And basically, some of the family, he had a big family, and some of the family had like trips planned and things that they were doing. And we had told them that to do what it is that you're planning, your loved one that's here, your dad, your uncle, your grandpa, or whatever, he would want you to still do the things that you had planned. He's not going to want you sitting around here staring at him, waiting for him to pass. And so finally, after, he was on the unit for about 3 weeks. And all of the family came together just by coincidence one night. It was a Friday night. And while they were all there, he passed peacefully. Even though all of the family had been in and out over the course of the 3 weeks, it just so happened that, they kind of all came together on this one night by coincidence. And I think that's what he needed in order to let go. And so he was able to do so. And he wasn't hurting. He wasn't short of breath. He wasn't agitated. It was peaceful. It was, if you have to be awake and go, that was a great way to go. And so that's something that I would hope for anybody.
That's a very nice story. Definitely. Well, I appreciate your time here. Thank you for joining me today. Yeah. Anytime.
If you ever have any other questions, please feel free to call me.
Good thing. All right. You have a good one.
Thank you.
Did you enjoy these clips? Want to hear the rest of the episode? Click the links below to listen to the full episode on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other popular streaming apps. Remember to support us. You can do this by checking out our Instagram pages at YIP Institute and at Watch Verbum. You can also look at our website at www.yipinstitute.com. Make sure to follow our page as we upload weekly. Have a good day.